It's been an extremely busy day as the NHL trade deadline has come and gone. Now we're going to recap all the trades we've seen since my last video posted earlier this morning. All kinds of deals we're talking about, including Tomas Hertl from San Jose being moved to Vegas. Jake Allen's on his way to become a New Jersey Devil. Kyle Okposo is on his way to Florida. A whole bunch of other deals as well. We'll recap all the big ones coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned tonight, we're going to recap all of the activity here from the NHL trade deadline. It was a very busy end. The last few hours of the deadline here today brought a lot of trades. Rather than do a video of each one, which was challenging for me anyways, given what I had on the go today. But I just find it's not the greatest strategy for the channel anyway. Typically when I'm pumping out video after video after video, trade after trade, I just find I don't get a lot of traction when you're putting out that much content. It's really kind of flooding the system, and it's just not really good. I'd rather kind of do maybe a couple of videos and kind of recap all the action here. But let's get into it here. The biggest trade of the day was definitely a shocker. Nobody's seen coming. The Vegas Golden Knights went out and got themselves yet another top player in Tomas Hertl, who comes to the Golden Knights from the San Jose Sharks. He's got 6 years left on his contract. Nobody's seen that coming. Now, there was some talk from GM Mike Greer that guys like Hertl and Logan Couture may eventually ask to be moved, and if that happened, that they would entertain offers and see what they could do. But clearly nobody's seen that coming. I mean, the Sharks also offered to retain, I believe it's 17% of Hertl's contract over the remaining 6 years. So I mean, that's crazy, right? They now have all three of their salary retention spots used, and they're all multiple years, including the contract for Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, and now Hertl. So they're not going to be able to do salary retention for some time on any additional contracts that move. So if Captain Logan Couture is traded, they would have to go through a third party to have any kind of salary retained. So going back the other way, actually going along with Hertl, is 2 third-round picks in 2025 and 2027. And going to the San Jose Sharks, they get a pretty good return. They get a 2025 first-round pick, and they get David Enstrom, who was the Vegas Golden Knight first-round pick in 2023. So it's essentially the equivalent of 2 first-rounders while eating some money on the contract. So, I mean, that's a pretty solid return. Now, Hertl is currently injured right now, but is expected to make a full recovery and be back before the end of the regular season. So, obviously, Vegas, when this was announced, was not a case of trying to stockpile further on the LTIR, because they're going to have, I think it's like $17 million or something like that could come back in the playoffs. Kelly McCrimmon, the GM of the Golden Knights, did comment on Mark Stone, confirming 100% he's out for the regular season, and said it was not clear, no definitive timeline if and when he's back for the playoffs. I think if he comes back in the first game, then there's going to be a lot of people upset, because that's going to be multiple years in a row this has happened. I do believe it's a legit injury, though, lacerated spleen. It is what it is. Vegas has become very good at exploiting the system here. Now, another team that was extremely busy today was the New Jersey Devils. They have a whole new goaltending tandem going into the next game here. They started by picking up goaltender Jake Allen from the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, Jake comes with not only this year, but one more year in his deal. And Montreal retained 50% of his contract, so that makes him a much more affordable goalie. I know Jake's numbers this year don't look the most flattering, but you got to remember the team in front of him hasn't exactly been great either. And he does have, in my opinion, Jake's played his best hockey when he's been part of a solid tandem, when he doesn't have to be the guy. And I think that's an opportunity for him. Now, New Jersey was a team that had expressed interest in him on multiple occasions. I think he was kind of like a plan B for quite a number of days if the Markstrom trade wasn't going to happen. I know Jake was interviewed on, I think it was TSN or Sports, I can't remember which one, after the trade went through, and he had advised, because he does have a modified known trade, that there was he was advised there was interest from the Devils for a number of days. Of course, Marty Brodeur works with the Devils now, and he used to work with the Blues. After he first retired, he was with the Blues organization at the same time Jake was. So there's familiarity there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Brodeur made a recommendation for Jake to be like a fallback plan if a more proven starting goalie like a Markstrom wasn't going to work out. Now, they get Jake from Montreal 50% retained. Going back to the Montreal Canadiens is a third-round pick. And that third-round pick's in 2025, and it can be upgraded to a second-rounder if he plays in 40 games between the rest of this year and next. So really, if he stays healthy, and he's, for the most part, done an okay job of doing that, it's just a little bit of time, nothing significant, then that they might be able to get a second rounder out of it. So either way, they get themselves one goalie there. Then they trade Vitek Vanacek later today to the San Jose Sharks, and they get goaltender Kaapo Kähkönen. So Kähkönen's a pending UFA, but on a bad Sharks team has actually done well. Their goaltenders actually, after the start of the season, actually haven't been doing too bad. So Kähkönen kind of gets a dry run. Could Kähkönen and Allen be the tandem there next year? It's possible, but I mean, Vanacek has struggled, so they move him out. This takes the pressure off their young guys like Nico Dawes and Akir Schmid. They can go back down and into the minors, continue developing, and go from there. It's still expect that the Devils are likely going to pursue Markstrom in the summer. I think whether or not Markstrom, whether that trade can be worked out, will play a role along with how Kähkönen does and if they want to consider bringing him back or not. But I wouldn't be shocked if they figure out Markstrom next year or next summer, and then maybe Markstrom Allen as their tandem next year. Let Dawes and Schmid, percolate in the minors for a year, and then Jake's contract will be up. Maybe one of them could come up at that point and just have a little bit more experience worked with the younger guys. So the Devils get a whole new goalie tandem, and to me, it's well worth the try. Although the only problem here, it's too little too late. I think Tom Fitzgerald should have done something like this a couple months ago. But I guess it gives them a good look into next year. New Jersey also traded defenseman Colin Miller to the Jets today for a 2026 fourth-round pick. So that gets another defenseman in Winnipeg to already a strong defensive team. But that's a good pickup for them. Cheap price. And of course, earlier this morning, there is a video on the channel from the Dufour trade. Of course, he get traded to the Jets as well. So New Jersey and Winnipeg hooking up on multiple trades today. So the Devils end up moving out Vanacek. They move out Miller. They move out Dufour. Obviously, still off some pieces. Get themselves some new goalies and some picks out there as well. The Rangers were busy as well. They picked up Jack Roslovic from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Jack Roslovic goes to the New York Rangers in exchange for a 2026 fourth rounder. So obviously they had some holes at center ice. Roslovic is an okay option, but I think the price tags for some of the more higher end players just weren't in the Rangers' budget. So they opted to go with some lower names here, but I mean, they also pick up Nick Petan from the Minnesota Wild today. So they add some more depth and some guys who can play center with the obviously unfortunate injury for Filipino causing him to be done for the year. We saw the Leafs add a little bit of beef before with Joel Edmondson on the back end. Today they add a little bit of grit up front with Connor Dewar coming over from the Minnesota Wild. He goes to the Leafs in exchange for a 2026 fourth rounder and Dmitry Ovchinnikov. So not a huge price tag there. So the Leafs don't do really anything significant. They kind of add around the edges here, add some a little bit of snarl, a little bit of grit, a little bit of size on the back end, and that's about it. I think the price tags were getting a little too high for them. Detroit today traded Klim Kostin to San Jose for defenseman Radim Simek, who's been in the minors. Detroit and Steve Yzerman, as much as they're progressing towards being a playoff team this year, Yzerman obviously didn't want to mortgage the future and didn't want to give up assets to really go all in because he didn't feel that they were really in that kind of predicament yet. Nice to see them moving up in the standings, but like he said, he doesn't feel like they're a top cup contending team at this point, and it didn't make sense to pay huge prices and jeopardize the future of what they've been building there. So obviously Kostin goes. That just kind of gives them some flexibility because he did have another year in his deal. So that's another trade there for the Detroit Red Wings. We also seen Kyle Okposo, the captain of the Sabres, be traded to the Florida Panthers. So they continue to add some experience. They picked up Tarasenko previously. Now they add Okposo. The trade price for that is a 2024 seventh round pick in Kalle Shalin. That seventh rounder can upgrade to a fifth rounder if the Panthers win a cup. So Okposo, of course, would be familiar with guys like Reinhardt there, who they were teammates in Buffalo. Another guy who's got good leadership qualities, longtime veteran, chasing a Stanley Cup, and I believe that was his preferred destination if he was going to get moved as well. The Sabres also moved veteran defenseman Erik Johnson today. Johnson goes to Nashville. We didn't think Nashville would be a buyer today, but they were. Erik Johnson goes to the Nashville Predators in exchange for a 2024 fourth rounder. And Jason Zucker was traded from the Coyotes to the Preds as well. Zucker goes to them for a sixth rounder. So again, that's, they absorbed the cap hit, but really these are some pretty cheap prices for the Preds to get themselves some decent players here. Nashville, I think Barry Trotz had a pretty good first deadline as GM. He also traded Dennis Gurianov to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for Wade Allison. So some players that could use another start, you could say, getting that done. And the Coyotes also traded defenseman Matt Dumba. He goes to Tampa for a 2027 fifth-round pick. So Tampa wasn't overly busy here today. They add Dumba, who is linked to several teams, but obviously he'll be a good fit there, I think, with the guy like Sergachev out of the lineup. The Sabres also moved prospect goalie Devin Cooley, who was a minor leaguer, to the Sharks. Of course, they needed a goalie. I guess they don't really need a goalie, but because they did get Vanacek back, but they pick up Cooley to be add some depth to the position for a 2025 seventh round selection. The Jackets, outside of trading Roslovic, also traded Andrew Peeke. He goes to the Boston Bruins for Jacobs Borrell and a 2027 third rounder. So Peeke to Boston. Joining Peeke in Boston will be Pat Maroon for the Minnesota Wild. That was one that I didn't necessarily see coming. I'm not super shocked that Maroon was moved, but to the Bruins, be funny to see after the incident with him and Jack Edwards how that works out. I know they'd already kind of patched things over, but just kind of funny after everything that went down there before. So Maroon to Boston for a 2026 sixth rounder and prospect Luke Toporowski. So that's pretty much. Oh yes, the Avalanche also traded Ben Myers today to the Ducks for a fifth rounder in the upcoming draft as well. That was more of a cap dump, roster spot opening, if it will. So some of the teams that were most busy, like I said, the Devils, the Rangers, the Bruins picked up a few players, Coyotes shipping out some guys. Vegas now ends up, over the last couple of days, get Anthony Mantha, Noah Hannafin, and Tomas Hertl. Vegas just continues to be so smart and aggressive, and they don't really care about what the players they're drafting. They're moving out all future assets for the present, and they figure if they're going to be that good at making trades, they're just going to let all the other teams make the draft picks and then they'll make the trades to pick them up. So overall, it's been a very eventful day, all kinds of big moves. So certainly been very fun activity. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's moves, all kinds of intense action. So now we'll start focusing on what could happen next for a lot of these teams in the offseason. For a lot of these teams, the offseason's not that far away. For the teams that missed the playoffs, they're only going to have around 20 games left. So we'll start preparing for that. So let me know your thoughts on all these trades in the comment section. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news around the entire NHL. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.